So we are so excited. We are here to talk Disney. This is so fun. We love talking Disney films. And my friend Stanford is here to talk about Pocahontas.
Hi, Rachel. Yes, Pocahontas.
This is the 33rd Disney animated classic in the canon. And we're going to have a lot of fun talking all about this somewhat controversial film.
Yes, absolutely.
So this movie came out in 1995 and was right in the middle of the Disney Renaissance. And there's like this mistaken idea that like The Lion King got all the talent and like Pocahontas didn't, because people love The Lion King not as favorably about this film. But that's actually not the case, correct?
Yes, that's how I understand it too, Rachel, that within feature animation at Disney, Pocahontas was the A film, that everybody was wanting to work on. And then The Lion King was, kind of the B film, the talking animal film, and holy smokes, you look at what happened and is very interesting.
Yeah, because Pocahontas got Alan Menken, who was just, at the height of his powers at that time. It had all of your big name animators and story team, Joe Grant, Glenn Keane, pretty big names. And you could, I think, safely say that The Lion King was kind of the bad news bears of Disney, whereas Pocahontas was the prestige kind of project.
Right. Yeah.
Which is interesting. Yeah. And so, when a lot of people that have listened to this podcast will have listened to my review, rather scathing review on my Disney Canon series. And I stand by everything I said in that review. I think that this movie is better. I said in my review that this movie is a Disney Twilight movie. And to be perfectly frank, I think that that's the best way to watch this movie. I think that this is a movie to watch just as fluff, silly, romantic fluff. Like you would watch like a Twilight movie, and I don't know. I think that's kind of the approach that I took to it. Maybe it was just just seeing a Hallmark movie right before. So I was like watching Pocahontas, and so maybe that's kind of the different reaction, because I was just like, this is fine, this isn't great, but it's silly, fluffy, kind of fun. I wasn't quite as harsh this time because I wasn't like really critically analyzing it in the same way. But we'll talk about all those criticisms. But I don't know. How did you feel about it when you were watching it this time?
Well, I was really happy to rewatch it. I haven't seen this film in a while. I've always thought this was an incredibly ambitious movie, and with some beautiful parts, and it's also really flawed. And I think even this most recent viewing, the flaws were really screaming at me. But then also some of the parts that I remember liking, I still like too.
Yeah, I think that that's very fair. So I asked on Twitter, and I've been trying to do this more on my podcast, is to get that feedback from people. And I asked on Twitter, thoughts on Pocahontas, hate it, find it underrated. So here we go. And so I got a ton of responses. I can't read all of them. But I did Hunks of Hallmark says, girl, John Smith is hot. That was one of my favorites. My friend Larry at LC Screen Talk says, as you know, I like it much more than you. Speaking about me, the music for me is amazing, in caps. Is amazing in this film. I really like every single song except for the villain song, but the rest, even the smaller, more background songs, such as the Grandmother Willow's hymn type of song, are fantastic. Also, I love the overall message it sends regarding different people and the environment and compassion and empathy. Don't like the fact that they completely disregarded history and tribal input, though. So there you go. That's one opinion. Conrado Falco says, most beautiful Disney film visually. Story-wise, fine. History-wise, very problematic. That's certainly fair. But that's pretty high praise. Most beautiful Disney film visually. Greg McBride says, love it. It's become a must-watch every year during the autumn season. There are beautiful messages in this film, and it also represents many breakthroughs given the time it was made. Really holds up. 4 exclamation points. And I love the recut version with the bonus song they originally cut. So there you go. Let me read a couple more. Love Pirate says, it's grown on me a lot since it first came out. Really disliked it when I saw it in the theater, but I've come to love the music and the animation. Still not one of my favorites. A lot of other mixed bags. Kyle of Dogs. He says, aggressively good and aggressively wrong-headed at the same time. Makes for a very frustrating watch. And then Animal Antics says, as someone who is very stubborn on historical accuracy, I actually somehow enjoyed it. I don't think it's as good as the previous movies from the Renaissance, but I don't think it's bad either. So there you go. That's a whole bunch of different on the movie. Which is
great feedback from your followers. Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, it's interesting. I do think that that's part of the reason why maybe we are as hard on it is because the other films in the Renaissance are so outstanding. And this kind of marked a turning point for the Renaissance of not being as great. Yeah.
No, I agree. I think the corner was turned to Pocahontas. And it's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I have to almost believe a little bit that part of that turning kind of this is the first movie that really felt the loss of Howard Ashman completely, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I thought that same thing too, Rachel, that I wonder what this movie would have been like if Howard Ashman had been involved in it. And, if Disney was really wanting to do kind of this Romeo and Juliet / West Side Story type of a film, set in America and all these different things, it would be different. It would be different, and it probably would be better.
But
anyway,
in Little Mermaid, Howard Ashman actually got story credit for it, which is rare for a lyricist. Typically, that doesn't happen.
Right.
And he was known to dress up in the roles. He dressed up as Ursula to give the writers an idea of what he wanted. So he was more than just a lyricist. And Stephen Schwartz is one of my absolute favorite lyricists there is, but he was not as good in this as Howard Ashman.
Yeah, exactly. And again, as we're saying, it's such an ambitious film. I think this had to have been really a difficult project, I would think.
Yeah.
As we'll explore.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of it was because Dances with Wolves had just been a massive hit, both critically and financially. And I have to believe that was somewhat into their thinking of like, we're going to tackle this kind of story that's sort of similar to that. People are going to love it. And, but I've always felt like Pocahontas was the wrong character to try to do. I think Sacagawea would have been much better because she had an exciting life of adventure and exploration. There's definitely romance there. Lewis and Clark, and all that stuff. Like she is a character that I think is a happier character in, I'm no expert, so maybe not, but that's my understanding compared to Pocahontas, who had a pretty sad life.
Yeah. And again, even though this movie was quote unquote inspired by real events, they made so many, they took so many liberties with it for their dramatic telling of this story. It's almost,
yeah.
The names are there, but wow, everybody has got a different kind of story. I wondered too. Again, I hate to second guess these filmmakers. I wasn't there, I wasn't making these decisions. But if it had been some kind of a story, but they just didn't even they just used different names. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. Like what they did with Moana.
Yeah. They you create this story that's about Native Americans and then these English settlers and the conflict that caused. And it's
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, here's
tricky.
something I think is interesting is that, well, actually, first I want to say, like, historical inaccuracies do not bother me in a movie.
Right.
It just bothers me in a bad movie because then it's awkward. And
I love that.
Because, like, I loved The Greatest Showman, and some people might say that's a bad movie, and we'll disagree because I thought it was really fun and I really enjoyed it. Obviously, it's super historically inaccurate, but that doesn't matter to me because I think it's a good movie.
It's a fun movie, yeah.
So that's kind of the opposite experience here that you have. And where something like Pearl Harbor or this, it's just kind of insulting and it's so historically inaccurate that it's really frustrating. And so, so some of the things that it's historically inaccurate about, well, the first one is so interesting to me because if this, a lot of people doubt whether the whole Pocahontas saving John Smith thing even happened.
Right.
Because he didn't really start talking about it until after she had died and she was a popular figure in England. So a lot of people think he made it up, first of all. The second of all is that Pocahontas, if it did happen, she would have been only a child. She would have been 10 or 11 when it happened. And the thing is that I don't understand why Disney almost never makes films about children. Like, that's one thing I love about Lilo and Stitch. It's actually about a little girl. Like, there's very few. And you'd think that Disney is a movie, they make movies for children a lot. Why don't they have more children in their movies? Like, Meet the Robinsons has one. Pinocchio, I guess, is. I mean, there's a few, but there's not that many. Most of them are adolescents that have these, that want to have these romances and stuff. But most characters in Disney movies are between like 16 and 22.
Yeah.
What do you think that is?
Good question. I don't know if there's. I hear what you're saying, and I've thought about it too. I don't know. I just almost think that it's just kind of how things worked out.
Yeah.
They're just based on what the films they just have decided to make. And
yeah, I mean, I guess there's Mowgli and there's what's his name in Sword in the Stone.
Well, and there's your favorite Penny from The Rescuers too.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, bring that up. But Penny and then Cody from The Rescuers Down Under.
Yeah. I don't know. It's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Because I would think that would be such a cool movie. Mm-hmm. To have a movie about this like 10, 11-year-old girl who sees what's going on, who intervenes, saves the life of this man, teaches her dad a lesson. Like, that would be a really great movie.
I watched after I watched the movie, I watched some of the extras, that were on the on my digital copy of Pocahontas, and it has they have a version of Colors of the Wind, kind of an earlier audio track of the song Colors of the Wind,
mm-hmm.
and then a bunch of storyboards. I guess it was a sizzle reel, if I'm not mistaken, that they put together in 1992 that they were showing people what they were working on. And it had all sorts of interesting storyboards, from the story development of the film. And it looked, at least some of them, it looked like they were exploring having Pocahontas be younger.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because her costume changed quite a bit too. The younger version of Pocahontas was completely covered in leathers, really from her neck down to her feet. And then eventually they made her, older, and then put that different outfit on her. But again, same thing. I just wondered what kind of. It would be fascinating to learn about the different iterations that they went through. I think what some of the more famous ones, and they show some of the pictures in that little Colors of the Wind thing. But one of the animal sidekicks they were throwing around was having a turkey. Have you seen that or heard that?
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, that Pocahontas, rather than Miko and Flit, it was going to be some. I think the turkey had a name too. I can't remember what the name was, but anyway, I mean, I'm sure it had a name, but I just they had shared that with the public. But anyway, but yeah, you would just wonder what kind of movie it could have been, and they just the different liberties that they decided to take with it and do this love story. And the more, according to Roy Disney, he was calling it a more dramatic telling of the story. But then also, as you were saying too, the producers, I think, because there's not a definitive story, there's so many different versions, or there's lack of agreement among scholars about what really, what happened, that they just decided to take their own creative liberties to it. I think when I first watched this, and there was all this raging going on about, back in '95, and all the raging going on about the historical inaccuracies, I just took it more as an allegory. I just thought nothing's right about this movie, other than it really is an interesting allegory about prejudice and I took that makes it a little more pleasing for me, but I still get upset over things. Yeah. there's plenty of things I can tell you about here as we move forward.
Well,
but yeah,
we'll definitely talk about that. But I wanted to read the words of Chief Roy Crazy Horse of the Powhatan tribe. He wrote a piece called "The Pocahontas Myth," and which is really good. I'll put a link down in the description if you want to read that. But he says, in 1995, Roy Disney decided to release an animated movie about a Powhatan woman known as Pocahontas. In answer to a complaint by the Powhatan Nation, he claims the film is responsible, accurate, and respectful. We of the Powhatan Nation disagree. The film distorts history beyond recognition. Our efforts to assist Disney with cultural and historical accuracy were rejected. Our efforts urging him to reconsider his misguided mission were spurred. So
yeah, that's too bad. That made me sad. I wondered. I know that they claim in some of these, again, behind the scenes stuff that I watched and that I've read, that they did consult with some Native Americans. We don't, I don't know who. Right, clearly, it wasn't the Powhatan tribe, and that's sad. Yeah, sorry that they were upset about it.
Yeah, for sure. And why don't you read the quote that you had from Russell Means, who is a famous Native American actor, probably one of the most famous, and he voiced the chief.
Yes.
What did he have to say?
Russell Means was very positive. So here's his quote. "This film, meaning Pocahontas, is the finest feature film ever done about American Indians in the history of Hollywood. It's so revolutionary. It shocked me when they showed it to me. The first thing that shocked me was the truth. The Eurocentric males are admitting why they came here, to kill Indians and to rob and pillage. That's never been done before. This is also the first time, other than on Northern Exposure, a TV show, Northern Exposure he's referring to, that a human face has been put on an Indian female. Here's this young woman who's wiser than her father or any man in the village, and she causes peace to reign. It's beautiful."
It's really interesting. It's really
fascinating. I know. It's very fascinating. Just kind of these different viewpoints of it. Yeah.
And I did reach out and tried to have somebody that's Native American join the podcast, but I had no luck. So I did try, because obviously we can't speak yay or nay. We can just sort of present these quotes.
Yeah.
People can, I guess, decide for themselves or look into it more.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it is. I just wish they hadn't had this sappy romance, and heaven knows I love a sappy romance, but I don't know. I just didn't feel like they had chemistry, and it just felt like she was a very we'll talk more about Pocahontas' character, but I just would have been okay with it if I liked the romance better, and since I don't. And it doesn't really work for me, that just kind of I sort of leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I'm willing to forgive the historic inaccuracies of Greatest Showman, because I like it and I like the music and the message. But this, I just didn't like the characters as much. And but let's talk first a little bit about just the animation itself, because I think that's one of the standouts. Our friend Conrado, he says it's the most visually stunning film in the history of Disney animation. So that's high praise from him. I don't know. What do you think about the animation?
Well, I love the art direction of this film. I can't say that I really love the character design. I think that Pocahontas herself is a beautiful. I mean, Glenn Keane, the master, right?
Right.
I think he designed her in a beautiful way, but this is kind of rude. She's kind of like Barbie. Do you know what I mean? It's just not.
Her hair is so beautiful, and that
I was going to say her hair is my favorite, and I love how often it's just blowing to the side.
Yeah.
Too, and I think that I think it's lovely. I don't mean to be too critical about that, but
no, but I agree on the character animation. I feel like the character designs are very geometric. Like, Pocahontas basically looks like two triangles.
Two triangles, and Ratcliffe is the rectangle.
Yeah.
And
so to me, it's not that pleasing as far as character designs. But I do think.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I do think that the backgrounds and the nature and those things, that is beautiful.
Yeah. See, I'm with that. So the backgrounds, I just think are stunning. I love those incredibly high vertical, just the trees. Just all those shots of the trees and just the interesting backgrounds that they choose to use. I think the color palette's very, very interesting, mostly because, when I visited Virginia, it seems very, very, very green, and they kind of made it blue, and but it's okay. I mean, again, it's just this, kind of a stylistic choice, and it's gorgeous. I think I had read that the team was influenced by Sleeping Beauty. And I think that there is some of that, in those highly detailed backgrounds. I thought the grandmother Willow character, her tree trunk looked like one of those Ivan Earl trees in a way, to me from Sleeping Beauty. So I love that. Again, not a big fan of the character designs. I can't speak to John Smith. I don't know if sounds like your one reader thinks he's pretty is handsome.
Very hunky.
But everybody else almost just kind of seemed plain. I guess I kind of like the chief, but anyway.
Good. I like in every way pretty much. I like Pocahontas's friend, Nicoma. Nicoma. I like her better in every way. She's a better character in my opinion. But even in her animation, I like her design a little bit better than Pocahontas. But yeah, and there was some criticism of Pocahontas that she looked more South Asian, like Laotian.
Yeah, the way that her face is drawn. Yeah,
Native American.
Agree. Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. So, but yeah, so let's talk about. But I love like In Colors of the Wind. I mean that's beautiful the way that everything flows and
it's a gorgeous sequence.
Yeah, really pretty. So
yeah.
That's and I love in Savages the way that the reds and the.
I do too. Savages is
cool.
A really terrific sequence as well. Really dramatic, and again, all that really stylized use of red and the funky all the shadows, the way that that they place them on. I love it too. That's a great scene.
So let's talk about the characters. So Pocahontas, as I said, I think I don't really like her as a character. She's my least favorite Disney princess because she's just so preachy and she's so I think it would have been so much better if they had made Pocahontas not be able to speak English and they would have had to learn how to communicate. And if you watch Terrence Malick's The New World, that's what he did. And he even used a really rare Native American Powhatan, I guess, dialect, very rare that only a few people speak, and that I thought was so much more interesting. I mean, it's gonna be hard to do because you have kids, but in Atlantis, the Lost Empire, they make the princess basically mute, she doesn't speak, and I think that's way better. And so you have to like work, the male character has to work to kind of get to know her. And I don't know. I just think would have been more interesting. What do you think?
Oh, totally agree. My first groan-inducing moment of this rewatch was when, Pocahontas and John Smith are meeting for the first time, and I think it's actually quite beautiful, as how they did that whole scene. But then when they touch their hands and the leaves come around, and you can hear Grandmother Willow singing, and then they start talking English to each other, and the animals are all, Miko is all surprised about it too, and I just think, oh, this so dumb. Again, I know that they had to figure out a way for these characters to communicate, and for them to like have this, it's almost like it was magic, It's kind of like Pocahontas' mother was blowing the wind, and it was magic, for them to be able to understand each other. And I'm sure I can only imagine the agonizing discussions they had in the story room about this, but I sure didn't like this.
Yeah, because I guess it's a tricky thing, because then you have to make her dad speak,
right?
Like, how do you make it work? It's tough, but it would have been better. It just, what they decided wasn't good, because the character is just, she's perfect. And she's like headstrong, but not in a likable way, in my opinion. Like, some people don't like Ariel, think she's too much of a brat, but in my opinion, Ariel has a vision of what she wants in life. She knows where she knows she doesn't belong where she's at, and she knows where she wants to be. And so there's, at least to me, there's something likable about that. There's something I can relate to about that, as opposed to Pocahontas, where she just dislikes everything and preaches to everybody. She dislikes the ideas her father has. She dislikes, doesn't want to get married to Kocoum, doesn't like, the ideas of John Smith. Like, she just kind of sort of a brat, but like thinks that she knows the answer to every question and knows how to, very preachy character. And it just makes her kind of, to me.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. And I guess maybe the really, truly the first groan-inducing moment for me was her ridiculous 300-foot swan dive that she does.
Oh yeah.
Because I know that they're introducing the character, and that she's brave and as you're saying, just got these strong opinions. I don't know. It's just, that was just so dumb. I just thought, because again, as they're going, who could do that and survive? Number one.
Yeah, right. Right. She's a cliff jumper. What are you saying? Yeah, that could have worked, but yeah, it's definitely a little much. And I don't know, she's just not a very likable character. I think that her friend is way more likable.
Yeah, Nakoma just seems
way better.
She's real, and I hear what you're saying. I don't really think, I've never really viewed Pocahontas as unlikable, but I hear you about the preachy part. But
like there's a whole scene where he shows her his gold, and she's like, "Oh, we don't care about gold," and like, right. Like the Native Americans had, like, they knew about gold. Like, that was stupid. Like, they knew about gold. And so anyway, that's a hard part about her character, and I think that makes it hard for them to have chemistry when you have these characters who just love each other because they're beautiful.
Right.
There's really no other reason for them. And also another really weird choice. Like, I like Grandma Willow, but why would you have, when you have a shaman that is a character in the movie briefly shown, why wouldn't you have him be the spiritual guidance for Pocahontas?
Yeah, I think that's I thought that was interesting too, because I mean, those sequences with Grandmother Willow, they're beautifully animated. I love the leaves. I mean, I just, everything is wonderful. But I agree with you. It's just like, it seems really random, and she doesn't necessarily. I mean, she kind of helps her, but not. I mean, but not really, right? She's not. Because at the very end, when she's oh, you found your path, child, now follow it. But it wasn't so much like, well, let me help you find your path. You know? I don't know. I agree with you. It's problematic to me.
I mean, it's definitely something that a shaman could have said, and that would have felt more grounded.
Yeah, that would have felt more authentic.
Especially when you have, it's so weird in this movie because the animals don't talk, but the tree talks? What?
Right. No, I agree with you. Yeah, exactly. This talking tree. I don't know. Again, I think there's something kind of mystical about it, which is appealing. But I agree with you. It seems out of place. And again, just one of the challenges of this film is that if they're trying to take these people that really lived, or and make this somewhat realistic story, and then these really crazy fantasy elements get thrown in.
Right.
I didn't necessarily groan when Grandmother showed up, but I was just remember thinking, oh yeah, this is kind of a problem.
Right. So you also have Thomas is introduced as a character who's
Christian Bale,
and he's sort of the friend of John's, and then you have Kokumon, who is the Native American love interest of Pocahontas. Those are sort of our main characters, and then we have our villain, Radcliffe, and who was a real person who really lived and starved to death and was actually not a horrible person.
I know. I just, again, interesting choice to kind of make him the bad guy. At one-dimensional,
oh my
beyond
gosh.
one-dimensional.
Yeah. Literally they get off the boat and start digging for gold.
Yeah.
Immediately.
He's chucking shovels to everybody.
You wouldn't get some food. I mean, come on.
Get some rest, or even say a prayer of gratitude. He's like, no.
Yeah. Right.
Digging, boys.
Jamestown Colony were very religious. You would never know that here. And he actually says, this is one of his lines, "This new world is going to be great. I'm going to get a pile of gold, build a big house, and if any Indian tries to stop me, I'll blast him." So that's kind of nuance that we're talking about here.
Yeah, he's such a one-note wonder, I'm in a wonder. Just
I mean, I don't even think you dig for gold on the beach. That way. Maybe, who knows? But I don't know. I hate Mine, Mine, Mine. I think it is the worst. The Gargoyle song, A Guy Like You, is the worst song in Disney as far as placement and what it does to the movie. But Mine, Mine, Mine is just such a bad song. I think I hate it.
I hear what you're saying. I don't hate it. I think the one thing that I do like about Mine, Mine, Mine is that, again, it's difficult, but you get these, you really understand the character motivations of John Smith and Radcliffe, with that. We kind of knew about John, even though, he's a bit of a rogue. Mm-hmm. He just is, he's an adventure seeker that wants his freedom, right?
Yeah.
And so this new world is going to provide that for him. That's the only part I like, are those that they at least the John Smith has a verse,
right?
In it, and it's kind of an interesting comparison between the two. But yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, my bottom 3 Disney songs are A Guy Like You, Mine, 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 and Say It With a Slap from
Bongo.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, there are some really good songs though. Just Around the River Bend is
which I
classic
love.
Alan Menken.
Beautifully animated too.
Mm-hmm.
And
Judy Kuhn as her singing vocalist is, I think, one of the best in all of Disney.
Oh, I agree with you. I love Judy Kuhn's voice. Yeah. She's just marvelous. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Colors of the Wind, of course, is gorgeous song. Really great.
Yeah.
And it won the Oscar that year, correct?
Yeah, and Pocahontas, believe it or not, won 2 Oscars for music. They best song for Colors of the Wind and best score to Alan Menken.
The score too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
Alan Menken is amazing.
Alan Menken is incredible, and the score is beautiful.
Yeah.
I think.
Agreed. Yeah, Colors of the Wind is really great, and so then we have those sequences, and then we get up to the point where Nakoma tells the chief and Kocoum about Pocahontas and John Smith. She's worried about her friend, and then Kocoum goes after them, sees John Smith and Pocahontas kissing, and one of, like, I would say, like, Aladdin and Jasmine kissing is pretty good. But I would say that John Smith and Pocahontas have one of the best Disney kisses.
It's a good, yeah, and I mean, I think that the animators they got that one right, at least, because it looks real, you know.
It looks passionate.
Yeah. So even though all this other stuff, I think they kind of missed on that one. They aced.
They got the kiss right. And so Thomas is there as well, hiding. Sees Kocoum coming up. Thinks that he's going to be endangering of John, and so Thomas kills Kocoum. And this dramatic scene where he's holding on to Pocahontas' necklace that her father had given her at the beginning, and it breaks. And so this is where Radcliffe decides he's going to use this thing to try to defeat the Indians and try to gain their land. And then, of course, the chief is very upset as well. And that's when we get Savages. And I really like Savages. I think it's actually one of the better Disney songs. Like, I guess some of the lyrics are a little clunky, but I really like what it's trying to do.
Yeah.
What it's trying to say. And I don't know if this is what you were kind of talking about with allegory, but in Savages, where you have the Native Americans who are convinced that the white people are savages, and they kind of are, to be honest. And then you have the white people who think that the Native Americans are savages, and they both don't see each other as human, and so they're just this building conflict, and then that reaches to the point of Pocahontas saving John Smith. And I don't know, what do you think about all that?
Well, that's a really good summary. I have a few things. First off, I think I've been, rather critical of the story team on this movie, and I don't mean to diss these, great artists, but I thought that they did a nice job with Thomas as a character, because Thomas, even though he's a secondary character in the film, this is his first kind of voyage. He's young, and so John Smith he saved him on the ship when he fell off, and he's just kind of nurtured him along. Mm-hmm. And then Radcliffe has just been a total jerk to him, right. So he's just feeling this pressure that again, one note Radcliffe who's saying you got to shoot these Indians, right? If they even get near you, you got to use that gun well and shoot them. And so they at least, I thought they did a really good job at least setting up why Thomas, I mean, poor guy, what a horrible spot to be in, and that he kills Kocoum, but it was not so much out of cold blood. It was just out of, I think, out of feeling conflicted and fear, fear. So I really like how they set that up.
Yeah, that was good. I agree.
With him. And then that whole Savages sequence, it's clearly the climax of the film, and just expertly done. I'm with you. Some of the lyrics are a little clunky, but it still is a great scene. And Pocahontas finally figures out what she needs to do, because it's been kind of conflicting her throughout the film, right? In that song, and I love the use of the compass and with her. I mean, they've got the three things. They've got the the Jamestown settlers, the Indian tribe coming towards together, and then Pocahontas is running too, and they do all sorts of cool things with nature and different things, as with her party. And it's
I like how her vocals
done.
Are, you hear the savages, then it's like, now plays the drums of war, or something similar to that. over top of the savages. Like it really gives
great.
you that sense of focus, and you see them running.
Yeah.
Good. It's really good. I think
it's really good. I think it's one of the best parts of the movie for sure, if not the best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that the main allegory you were like thinking of when you said that you thought the movie did a good job as far as an allegory? Or
well, yeah. I mean, because again, I think that it's an allegory about prejudice.
Mm-hmm.
I think, or a story about prejudice and what it can lead to. You know, the destructive path that it can lead to, and so. And they didn't get their facts necessarily straight, but Pocahontas does an incredibly heroic thing, and you know she flings herself on top of John Smith just right as her dad is about to kill him, and talks about how this path is, you know, this path to war is not good, and we've got, you know, they need to stop it, and she won't. She's not going to move. So if her dad's going to kill John Smith, he's going to have to kill her too. Yeah. And that really is a wake-up call, I think, for both groups. They can see this. And again, just because they love each other or whatever, you know, we know, we both agree that the love story is not great. But I think it's a beautiful way to present the you know, what prejudice can do and what it takes to overcome it. And so I think that definitely the allegory, the way I see it, comes through that.
I can see that. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think that they were trying to do something, I think it's weird because it ends up feeling so like culturally insensitive, but I think they were trying to do a different kind of princess. They were trying to do a different kind of female character, I think. And so, you know, I think they're obviously a different race, a character of a different race for the Disney princesses. They were trying to do something different and groundbreaking, and it's just, they just shouldn't have picked a real person.
Now,
that's a lot of the main problem, and they shouldn't have made it so sappy. I think it just leaves kind of a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah, you know, agreed. Although I got to tell you, I have always found the ending of this film to be really satisfying, and I'm not. I don't know. I mean, I've really been anxious to talk with you about this to get your take on it, because she doesn't choose the dude. She decides to stay with her people. Like, she picks duty and over romance.
Yeah.
And I thought I know that it was controversial, and that was also controversial because it was like the first Disney animated feature that had a bittersweet ending. You know, like she didn't get both. You know what I mean? She's like, she got her man and is going to be there to help her people. She had to choose, and that worked. That's always worked for me, and it remained with this rewatch. What about for you?
Awesome. Yeah, no, I do like the ending. I appreciate that. I don't know if it's 100% earned by the character that she would behave that way. She's been a pretty selfish character up until that point.
She's been so preachy.
But it is a different choice, and I do appreciate it. And it is, if this happened, you know, obviously as an 11-year-old, she's not going to leave. Like, so it is technically accurate, and she didn't go over to England until later and didn't marry John Rolfe. And we don't even want to talk about Pocahontas 2 because it doesn't exist.
Which I refuse to watch. I've never seen that because, you know, those cheap clothes, I can't even bear them.
It's so bad.
No.
Yeah, so I do appreciate the ending. And like I said, if I'm just watching this, because if I have on my, I don't know, I'm watching a sappy romance hat on, then I found it a lot more tolerable. And maybe that's weird, and maybe I should have the exact same criteria for all movies. But I don't know, like if I'm going into a movie that is an Oscar winner, I'm going to have a different standard than when I watch a Hallmark movie. I just am, I'm a human being. And I think I don't know, it's kind of like I did not care for the recent Annihilation movie. I know this is going to sound like a weird representative, but people could be like, how could you I don't know, I loved a silly rom-com that I saw this year called Off the Menu. Super cute, super fun. But in my opinion, Annihilation was not successful in doing what it set out to accomplish. Whereas Off the Menu was. It did what it was trying to do, and it did it well. And I feel like in this movie, if I just watch it as sort of a silly, fluffy romance, it kind of achieves that fairly well. There are parts that I don't like because I don't really like her. She's not a likable enough character for a dopey romance.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just if I think of it as a silly romantic movie and just fluff, then I'd probably give it a C or C plus. But if I'm thinking of it as a prestige Disney Renaissance work of art film, then I'd give it a really bad grade. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah. No, I mean, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. And I have it in my ranking of my Disney movies. I have it at 50 in my ranking. So it's one of my lower ones.
Yeah.
I have it just above Fun and Fancy Free. The slapping song. And
slapping song.
I know you will really disagree with this, but I have Black Cauldron at 49 and Pocahontas at 50, just because there's nothing that's offending anybody in Black Cauldron. So that's why I think it's a tiny bit better. Mm-hmm. Whereas this, it has that awkwardness of historical inaccuracies. I was a little bit nicer on this watch than I was.
I know. Kind of in the middle.
Uh-huh.
I think it's number 33, and I'm trying to remember what's above or below it. But because again, the animation and the parts I quite like. Mm-hmm. And then I'm even thinking though, I wonder if I'm going to move it lower, because this viewing, I don't know why. I don't know. I mean, I think I wasn't in a bad mood or anything. It just brought it down. Maybe I was looking
podcasting will do that to you, because that, when I for the most part, I've actually liked things more when I podcast about them. Uh-huh. But on certain films like this, that just don't sort of hold critical analysis that well. I found that I didn't really enjoy podcasting about Harry Potter. I had pleasant memories of all of the movies, and then when I went to sort of critically and analyze them through a podcast, I was like, ooh, that wasn't very good, and I didn't really like that, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, these movies are very good, and there's a couple that are good, but a lot of them I didn't like, and I don't know, I left that experience being like, oh.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm just sort of starting now to kind of get back to being like, oh yeah, I like Harry Potter. Harry Potter's fun. It took me a while though. It's been almost a year of covering Harry Potter. In that year, the year that Fantastic Beasts came out, I spent almost the whole year doing Harry Potter podcasts, and so it took me a while to kind of get back to sort of liking it again.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, it's an interesting experience. But that's the thing, with movies, is there's nothing wrong with having quite different experiences watching a film. And any critic should be I really hate it when people are like, how come you gave this thing 3, or you gave it, at one point you gave it 3 crowns, but now you have it, or you gave it 3 stars. And or how come you gave this, 1 grade? And it's just I don't know. It's just what I felt at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm a human being.
Exactly.
But it can depend on the day that you watched it. Sometimes, honestly, you can be tired, frustrated, different moods. All that stuff comes into play. They like to pretend that it doesn't. Yeah. We try to be as objective as possible, but
no, but it does. It definitely comes into play for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So. All right. Well, so let's, I've got my little random number generator here. Let's figure out what we're talk about next. Okay, 55. That's almost towards, so that's Big Hero 6.
Hey, excellent.
So next month we will talk about Big Hero 6. So that will be really fun. And let us know what you think of Pocahontas in the comment section, where you would rank it, what you think are its strengths and weaknesses. And and let us know on Twitter. Either way, that would be really fun. And where can people find you?
Speaking of Twitter, I'm at Stanford Clark, and then I have a movie blog, which is moviespastandpresent.com.
Great. Rachel's Reviews on YouTube and on iTunes. And also, you can find me on Twitter and other social media at Smiling LDS Girl. So check that out. And thanks so much for doing this. This is so much fun.
Thank you for the invitation, Rachel. This has been great. Thanks so much.
And we'll look forward to talking Big Hero 6 next month.
Yes, definitely.